Hello everyone, I am happy to see you again in this platform, and further we will be discussing the topics related to design of RCC and steel structures. Regarding this, in civil engineering there are many important design which is going to be dealt further in this channel in order to get a clear understanding for the students and also the learners. There are two different parts in the subject, that is reinforced cement concrete and steel structures. So the first part, that is module 1, consists of footing design by reinforced cement concrete, that is in particular I will be discussing combined footing and retaining wall which is being constructed in highways, other hill areas for the basement structure, etc. For these oriented structure, a retaining wall is required. So the two type of retaining wall is cantilever and counterfort, which will be dealt here. And the third topic is water tank, that is a circular water tank which may be rigid and flexible. And the second part is a rectangular water tank resting on a ground. So both the things are resting on ground oriented design. And the fourth topic is design of portal frame with fixed and hinged base support. Earlier you might have learned that there are different method of analyzing a structure, that is you would have taken a continuous beam and you would have designed by using Macaulay method, conjugate beam method for determinate structure, and for indeterminate structure you might have dealt with Hardy-Cross method, stiffness matrix method, flexibility matrix method. But here it is different from that. Here the portal frames are the combination of a column and a beam. That is why it is a slightly improved or modified mode of design and analysis in order to fit for a building. You will be finding the shear force and bending moment for column as well as the beam, and you will design the beam and column as per the requirement of IS 456. And the second part will be roof truss. The roof truss will be applied in civil engineering for workshops and large gathering structures. The plate girder will be majoritively used in bridges for taking the flexural load. And finally the gantry girder, which will be designed for moving of objects in a factory. These are heavy objects which can be used to move the heavy object, which will be designed by using the steel structures and as per the guideline of Indian standard. So with this introduction, today I will discuss the module 1. Yes, when coming to the first part of the subject, design of RCC and steel structures, the 17 CV 72, I will discuss basics of foundation. Why? Because the first part is designing a combined footing. So in order to understand that, we shall have a better understanding about what is foundation and why you need foundation, what are the uses, what are the types of foundation, which we will discuss. And when coming here, a definition, a foundation is a part of structure on which the building stands. Here you can see a building all the building does have a substructure part. If you want to have a comfortable living, you should have a house. So what you require is the superstructure. In order to have a stable superstructure, we should have a substructure called foundation. There are two different technical terms, that is foundation and footing. So what do you mean by foundation is the overall pattern of substructure is called the foundation. How the load is being distributed to the soil is the concept which is known as foundation. The foundation, one of the part of the foundation is footing. So it is a further part of foundation. So here you can see the load of the structure is being distributed through this column, the roof load and the moving load which are going to take place in this house is being transferred through the column to the ground by using the footing. Footing is a part of a foundation. So it distributes this load to the soil safely so that there might not be any settlement or collapse or sliding due to the external force. And next thing, if the loads are light and strong shallow soils, that is, if you are constructing a low-rise building of majorly 1 to 4 stories, then you can go for a shallow foundation, that is footing oriented foundation. And in the second case, you are having a strong soil, that may be a sand or hard clay oriented material, you can go for a shallow foundation. According to the bearing capacity of the soil, that is amount of load with which it can handle. According to this, the foundation depth varies and the size of the footing varies. So if you want to find the area of the footing, what you need is general two things. They are safe bearing capacity of the soil. Each and every soil has its own bearing capacity. Ability to take the amount of load is known as bearing capacity. For each and every soil it varies. For a rock it may be higher end. You will be having a foot impression in the sand when you are walking along the seashore. Why? Because it doesn't have the capacity to take your load, that is your self weight, so that it needs a firm surface in order to take your load without disturbing the natural soil. So this is the safe bearing capacity and force applied on the column. If you know these two parameters, that is safe bearing capacity and force applied on the column, how much of weight is acting towards the column, then you can find the area of spread footing. The more the safe bearing capacity, you will be having the less area of footing. And next is, when comparing with piles with footing, it is more than 2 or 3 times than the price of spread footing. We cannot straight away go for a pile foundation unless otherwise it has any requirement. Generally piles are very much costlier than footing. So for particular reason piles are very much lesser in some cases, which we will deal further, and 5% of total cost for foundation. A differential settlement should not be more than 6 to 12 mm. That is, if you are having 2 or 3 columns, all the column below that, all the footing can settle parallelly, but the differential settlement shall not be more than 6 or 12 mm in order to have a stability and serviceability aspect. And depth of footing should be below the top soil. Generally, if you are constructing a footing, depth of footing should be below the top soil. Always we cannot have a footing on the natural level of the soil. We need a particular depth we have to excavate, then we have to proceed the footing. And firm native soil, the footing has to be laid only on the firm native soil, that is, in a firm soil the footing has to be laid. If the soil is not firm and If you are constructing a footing, it causes settlement and tilting of a structure. Also, the footing has to be laid above the water level, that is groundwater level. In some areas, we might see that the groundwater level is below 10 feet or 5 feet, even 5 feet you will be having a groundwater level at a particular area where you are having a high yield of groundwater. In that case, you should be aware that what kind of a footing and at what depth we have to design. What is the size of your footing? Either if you are going for 0.5 meter by 0.5 meter as the size of the footing, that is length into breadth, your depth of footing should be at least 0.5 meter below the natural level of the soil. This is the highlight or the tips which has been given to you for designing a footing. And as the weight of the building increases, the size and depth and the system of the footing changes. If we are keep on increasing the story height, then the footing size may definitely increase and the depth also should be increased from the natural level. The third thing is system. What do you mean by system is, there are different types of footing which we will discuss. According to the height and the load from the structure, these footings are classified into different types. Also, this is an important point where you are having a cold climates, that is the foundation should be built below the frost line. What do you mean by frost line is, in some, say for example, in hill areas, that is Kashmir oriented areas, even the soil will be always moistured due to the dew around the environment. So, if you are building a house there, we have to have the foundation of the building below the frost line, that is there will be, if you are excavating, there will be a particular depth of the soil where the environmental moisture and the damage of the soil is zero, nearly zero. At that particular point you have to excavate and then you have to start your foundation. Why? Because due to the environment, the soil also get freezed. In the period of summer, you might have a different scenario in environment, and in that case the soil will expand and contract. So, if you build your foundation above the frost line, what happens? Due to the temperature and environmental change, the soil also has some expansion and contraction. Similarly, your footing also suffers due to this effect, and the effect of this, the building also gets some serviceable effects. So, these are the important things which you have to take care when you are deciding a footing. So, next let us discuss what is the need of foundation. Why you need foundation? Speaking in technical terms, what is the need of foundation is to transfer the building load, that is axial load, and second one is moment and other forces. All the buildings does have the load from the beam and the slab which will be transferred to the column. This load has to be distributed, so that we need foundation, and the second one is moment. So, the members such as beam and column does have moment in x and y axis. So, you have to transfer the moment. The column is not taking that moment, it transferring it to some other part. So, the column has to transfer the moment and the load to the foundation, that is footing. Even footing also has to transfer the load and moment. Where it will be transferring? It will be transferring to the soil. So, if you want to safely transfer that, then you have to design a foundation. And other forces, what are the other forces are? It may be a wind, it may be earthquake. These are the other important forces which will be loaded in the building. It has to be safely transferred to the ground. Here another term is safe bearing capacity, that is safe bearing capacity is dependent upon the soil and the settlement within limit. Naturally, whatever the structure you are building, after building your structure, when serviced, definitely all the footing will be under settlement. These settlements should be under within the limits as prescribed by the Indian standards, so that we can have a safe building. And second thing is anchor the building against wind and seismic load, and isolate the building from frost heaving and expansive soil. This is what I have discussed. In some areas you might have a black soil or silt oriented marshy land, and you might have peat oriented and natural elements in the surface. If you are building any structure in that area, you should make sure that your structure is not standing on those weak area. You should dig into more depth. If you are finding any firm strata, in that strata you have to construct your building. In any place throughout the world we can build a structure. It can be even an ocean, or it can be in a river or a sea oriented seashore area, or it may be in a mountain. Anywhere you can build your structure safely, unless if you have understood the environment and the soil, you can adapt a particular type of a footing and foundation in order to have a safe building. And last one is holds up the building from moisture. So moisture always comes from during the rainy season and other climatic changes. The water may infiltrate towards the soil, so that infiltrating water should not affect the foundation, so that we are going to a firm level. Yes. Now let us discuss types of foundation. What are the different types of foundation? Generally there are two types that are shallow foundation and deep foundation. In definition, if the width of the foundation is greater than the depth, definitely your footing will be having some width, that is breadth. So this breadth is greater than the depth, then it is labeled as a shallow foundation. If the width is smaller than the depth, that is depth is from the level, natural soil level to the level where you lay your footing, is known as the depth. So if this depth is smaller, then the foundation is called a deep foundation. For a thumb rule, we can take it as 3 feet, that is 1 meter is generally known as a shallow foundation, but this values might not be true for every case. For majority of the case, this value holds a good approximation, and for deep foundation it may go up to 60 to 200 feet. It is known as the deep foundation. The first part, shallow foundation, are used for small light building. That is light building in the sense, there might be a structure. If you are designing for a wood oriented structure for 6 story, the dead load from the structure will be very much less, so you might not require a deep foundation for a 6 story for a wooden structure. If you are having a steel oriented structure for 2 or 3 story, the dead loads are higher and the other loads are high, you definitely want to go for a deep foundation. Why? Because it does not depends upon a single aspect, that is number of stories. It depends on the load which is acting, and while deep ones are for large and heavy buildings. So if your weight of the building is very large and heavy, then you need a deep foundation. So this is the different system of foundation. First one is shallow foundation and second one is deep. Shallow foundation is further classified into isolated footing, wall footing, third one is combined footing. Why I am discussing here is, in this subject you are going to discuss more about the combined footing, the cantilever or strap footing, or finally the raft or mat footing. These are the types of shallow foundation. And deep foundation are pile foundation and pier foundation, caisson foundation. So these are the 3 types which we are using for deep foundation. So in deep foundation, the structure which are carried by this foundation are very large, that is either it may be a bridge, it might be a dam or offshore structure. So for these kind of high loading structure, you need a deep foundation generally, whatever might be the soil. So next thing is for shallow foundation, which we will discuss further. First one is isolated footing. So it is a most economical type. In all the areas throughout the width and depth of the country, you can see the isolated footing type, and they are straightforwardly transfer the load from the column to the soil. Directly the slab load is distributed to beam and beam load is distributed to column, and from column it directly distribute to the footing. So for each and every column you will be having a footing is known as the isolated footing. The size might be rectangular, square or circle. So you can see the different types of footing here. From the column, the direct footing is being shown here, that is a flat type. What do you mean by stepped? If the load is higher in case, then the load cannot be distributed from higher end to the lower end suddenly, so that you might require some area in between the footing, that is known as a pedestal, so in order to distribute the load evenly. And for economy also this pedestal is required. So for higher load you will go for stepped footing or for sloped one. So you can taper the pedestal so that you can get a sloped footing. So these are the plan. So generally you can see for each and every column you are having a individual footing, which is known as isolated footing. And next one is combined footing. Here we are interested in this part. This is generally designed to resist the bending moment and shear force developed due to soil reaction. So in some cases there might be a two adjacent column due to expansive joint. If you are having a college like structure, the structure might be more than 30 meter in length. If you are having like that, you definitely require a expansive joint between two structure, which is given by guideline. So if you need an expansive joint, you would be starting another column adjacent to that, so that two column will be raised at a same point with some limited amount of distance. In those area you can have a combined footing, that is for two column you will be having a single footing, is called combined footing. And next thing, when two or more heavily loaded column located close to other, resting on less bearing capacity soil. So if the bearing capacity is also less and the column is also too closer according to the plan, so then you can go for combined footing, and area of isolated footing overlap each other. So if you are designing isolated footing, there might be in some area case, or in some case the footing might overlap. In those overlapping condition you can go for combined footing. And column located to the property. See, in a closely placed area, that is metropolitan area, all the buildings are adjacent towards each other. So if you want to build your footing, at least you should cross your limit for the adjacent building. So this might not be fair. So in order to eliminate that, you can go for a combined footing. You can merge the two foundation in order to safely distribute your load, and also the problem will not arise due to the adjacent property. And there are different types of combined footing, including slab type and slab and beam type. So the combined footing is purely slab in some case and slab and beam. So this I will show you in the picture. And rectangular, a raft type of combined footing is also available in some case, and strap beam type. They may be square, T-shaped or trapezoidal in the shape. If you are looking into the plan, these are the different types of shapes according to the load distribution. See, in one column you are having higher load, that is say for example 1000 kilonewton, and in other column you are having a load of 500 kilonewton. See, there is a large difference between the two column. You have to have a same footing for the columns. That is, in the sense you can have a trapezoidal footing. So in one side you will be having a larger width, and in the other side you will be having the smaller width. So that is why according to the load type there might be the change of the size. An important point in combined footing is the center of gravity of the footing area with the center of gravity of the total load should coincide. So that is why a combined footing has to be designed according to this type. Here you can see the two column is being placed with a common footing called a combined footing. Here you can see that sand layer and plain cement concrete. Above that you will be having the combined footing. So the plan of the combined footing is here, and also you are having a, see, this is a real time picture. You are having a combined footing for these two columns. This kind of scenario will generally be arised for a lift. So you can see the pedestal here. In order to distribute the load, this pedestal are here. And the second type is isolated footing. For each and every column you are having a separate footing. And here you can see a connecting beam here. This I want to highlight. There is two column, that is P1 and P2, and you will be having a connecting beam between the two column. Why? Because if the distance between the two column is significantly large, then you need a beam to connect the column. Why? Because the slab does not have the stability property, that is, the column load will be evenly distributed throughout each and every meter if you are having the connecting beam. This is the advantage. This beam distributes the load to the slab. So the slab area is being evenly distributed by using the connecting beam. So this is why for combined footing the connecting beam is placed in some area. And strip footing is commonly used as a foundation of load bearing walls. So if you are going for load bearing structure, then you can have this strip footing. The footing is usually has twice the width as the load bearing wall. If you are having 230 mm wall, the twice of the width is 460, like that, or more than that, even in some case might be wider. So if you are having a high water table area, in that case you can go for strip footing. They are particularly suited to light structural loading such as those found in many low rise or medium rise domestic building. And for example, at least 450 mm of width is required for the strip footing if they are bearing on a rock, and at least 1 meter depth in a shrinkage clay oriented areas. So you can have the picture here. If this is the natural ground, at least this area should be 450 mm depth or 1 meter according to the type of soil, and you can start your strip here. So see, you can see the strip footing here. Above the strip footing you can have the bricks. So the size is gradually increased and the building blocks were constructed above it. This kind of structure, a strip footing, throughout the brick area you will be having this strip. Throughout the whole building area you will be having this type of foundation. And next type is strap footing. The footing under the column is built individually, and the two column is being constructed individually, and a beam is connected for this. So this beam eliminates the differential settlement. So both the footing have a common settlement, so that the building stability and serviceability issues might not arise. When two columns are reasonably close, a combined footing is designed for both the columns, which we very well know that when two columns are far apart, if we cannot go for a combined footing and we need to connect that beam in order to eliminate the differential settlement, we can have a strap beam with designed to transfer eccentric moment between two columns. Here the strap beam is essential to have the uniform bearing pressure and to minimize the differential settlement, which I have indicated earlier. The strap beam in effect cantilever over the exterior column footing and bending will cause the tension at the top. So this is the part which is reverse. You can see the top part of the strap beam has tensile force and the bottom part of the beam has compression force. Why? Because due to the soil force, the reverse effect happens in the strap footing. So you can see an example for this. Individual isolated footing is here for each and every column and it is connected by a beam. So this beam is known as the strap beam. So this beam allows the heavier loaded and the lightly loaded structure. This beam connects and it tries to balance the load and takes the moment. So here also you can see a beam is being connected between two isolated footing, and you can see the strap beam which is also provided here. See, this area is seashore area where there might be a possibility of higher settlement. So this higher settlement, if it is even to all the footing, then it is admissible. And a mat foundation. Finally, if the bearing capacity of the soil is weak and not capable to transfer the load of the building to the ground, for a weak soil, a mat foundation is essential, and similar to the combined footing, if a property line is adjacent to the area, then mat foundation would be helpful. And the third case is if the deep foundation cost is very much higher, then we can go for a raft foundation. And if each and every column is being designed with a footing that can cover more than 50% of the foundation area, then we can go for a mat footing. See, the structure is fully covered with the mat here. So the overall structure is being covered by a single foundation called mat foundation. In that you can see individual column is being raised. So this case is generally called a mat foundation. And next case is, the first case is over, that is shallow foundation, and here is a deep foundation. When there is a layer of weak soil at the surface, so in the surface area we cannot see good bearing capacity of a soil. In that case we can go for a deep foundation. If the load of the building have to bypass this layer and be transferred to the layer to the stronger soil or the rock below the weak layer. So the idea is, generally if you are having a weak soil at a particular depth, you have to dig deep, and when you are getting a firm and strong strata, there you can start your foundation. So up to the area, if the firm strata is very much deep, then the foundation is called a deep foundation. And also if the building has heavy load, concentrated load and high rise structure, there are two types of deep foundation, that is end bearing piles and friction piles. So which we will discuss. See, these are the area which you are having a weaker soil. So we have to dig towards the depth, and if you are finding a strong rock soil, you can have your foundation from this part, so that a column like structure is being raised. So this structure is called a pile. So So in the end of the pile it is beared, so it is called end bearing pile. Another type of pile is there, this is friction pile. The load which is being taken by the surface of the pile, so that it is called a friction pile. So due to the friction between the soil and this pile, the load is being distributed. So that is why this called is friction pile. You can see an example of this. All the piles are driven into the firm strata. All the piles are driven, and you will be having a pile cap. This cap connects all the pile, and above that you will be having a pier or your column. So this, from that this superstructure starts. So you can a practical structure which is having the pile. Above that you will be having a pile cap connecting all the piles. You will be having a pile cap, and above that the structure is being constructed. And second case is pier foundation. You can see the piles are being driven, and above that pile cap, and over the pile cap you will be having a pier and a pier cap. If the load is massive, if you are building your bridge over the river, so the river soil will not be very much stable under particular depth, so you can go for a pier foundation. And the last type is caisson foundation. The caissons are for heavy loads, which might be for dam and offshore structure. You will be having, see, this is a structure which is being built, and above that you will be having the platform which you are going to use. So the water will be surrounded by all the area, and the working platform and the place will be here. The load which is acting here will be transferred to the rock which is below the water. So this is called a caisson foundation. And then the application of caisson foundation, wood, steel or reinforced concrete, and used for bridges, generally heavy load carrying bridges and structures that require foundation under rivers and other water bodies. In seashore also this type of foundation is very familiar. And for concrete dams, if you are storing the water by using a dam, so the dam foundation will generally be a caisson type foundation. And finally I will be having this and discussing the type of rock or soil according to the bearing capacity. So this I will discuss about the types of soil. If you are having a rock soil, then the bearing capacity is 3300 kilonewton per meter square. That is rock oriented soil is, it might be granite, trap and diorite. And these four component of soil are called rock oriented soil. And the second type is non-cohesive soil. They are sand, gravel and the mixture of that is generally called non-cohesive soil. And cohesive soil are clay oriented and shale oriented, black cotton soil. These are the cohesive kind of a soil which has very less bearing capacity. It needs either higher depth of foundation. So the rock oriented type of soil has a better bearing capacity. You can see for a soft rock you are having 450 kilonewton per meter square. So above that you will be having, it is named as a rock oriented soil. And non-cohesive soil from 100 to 450 kilonewton per meter square is called non-cohesive soil. And the type of soil and the property will be similar to sand and gravel. And clay oriented, shale or black cotton soil will be having a bearing capacity of 450 and 100. See, you can have the same level of 450 to 100 in non-cohesive and cohesive soil, but the property changes, expansive property. So for a black cotton soil it is very shrinkable, and you should be careful in designing a foundation. So this will give a hint of how good a soil is. So if you are having a better soil, your cost of foundation will be less. So In a thumb rule, sand and gravel is very best for a foundation and the cost will be less. Medium and hard clay is good. Silt and soft clay is poor for constructing a house, and organic silt and clay needs are generally undesirable. You have to go for higher depth, and peat oriented soil is unsuitable. So with this I will wind up the session. So here you will be having a clarity of different types of foundation and why these foundation are used according to the particular condition. So with this we will move on to the next title of how to design for a particular foundation. So I hope this would have given you a clarity of the different types of foundation where we can adapt a particular type of foundation and what are the advantage and disadvantage of each and every type of foundation. So thank you for listening. Happy learning. See you again. Thank you.